but we cannot find any evidence of it ever existing. What were you expecting to happen this weekend?
Yeah, that's everything. We don't have any more songs. What do you want us to do?
She leaned towards me, looked me dead in the eyes and said, 3, 2, 1. My first band performed at a music festival that, for the life of me, I cannot find any record of anywhere. I've looked. We still talk about it to this day, but we cannot find this festival online, nor can we find the acts who performed there, not a thing. I have one photograph from that weekend, and that's it. The Mandela effect is the concept of a false memory held by multiple people, and is named after the instance where several people believe they saw news coverage of Nelson Mandela dying in prison. He didn't. It's a false memory, and no such official news article exists, but so many people seem to share this same recollection. So this festival, we played there, but we cannot find any evidence of it ever existing. We first heard about this festival from the guy who ran the open mic night at our local pub. We were getting on really well with him, and he told us about his friend who was arranging a festival in Swindon. Open mic guy offered us a slot. There was going to be a few other performers there, including a band called Smile, who were apparently the award-winning Best Unsigned Band of the Year. I don't know where that award came from. We jumped at the chance. Swindon! This was like touring abroad for three 17-year-olds from Lower Bristol. It turned out the reason the festival was created was because a field owner realised that there weren't any music festivals happening that weekend, so he made one. Never say the rich don't do anything for us. Open mic guy sent me a text a few days later with the information. The address was here, the date was this, you on at 6 PM, stage is all set up, just bring your instruments and a tent. No problems. The day of the festival rolled round. Now the only person with a car was my bass player, Steve, and it was a 3-door Nissan Micra. I got to Steve's place early afternoon since the journey would only take about an hour and a half. This would give us plenty of time to unload, set up our tents and chill before going on stage to wow the Swindon masses.
Well, you know what they say, best laid plans and all that.
A Nissan Micra is not a big car, yet somehow we managed to fit, and this is not an exaggeration, 2 amps, 3 guitars, a tent, change of clothes, wash bag, crate of beer, crate of cider, an electric drum kit and 3 teenage blokes into this thing. Did I mention my drummer was 6 feet tall? By dint of being the smallest and bendiest of the 3, I was wedged into the back seat with all of the equipment. All of it. The drummer was riding shotgun as he could barely fit in the car without all of our gear taking up both back seats and the boot. I think one of the guitars was poking out of the window. I bought a bottle of wine to keep me company. From reading the AA map, we worked out it would take an hour and a half to get to this festival, and sure enough, 2 hours later we were completely lost. This was before mobile dating was reliable, cheap and usable, so we then spent a good hour driving around Swinton trying to hack into other people's Wi-Fi to get our location. We stopped and asked strangers if they knew where this field was, and of course none of them did. I tried calling and texting Open Mic Guy, but he never responded. After around 3 hours with my legs wrapped around a drum kit and knocking back this bottle of wine, we somehow found it. We were worried because we'd been told we were meant to be on at 6 and it was gone past. We met the owner of the field, a chap called Will, and he was such a pleasant bloke. Very happy to see us. Sorry we're late, we tried to say, but he just carried on eagerly showing us a stage and the bar and the bonfire, happy as Larry and as excited as Ozzy Osbourne in a bat sanctuary. The Marvin Gaye estate in a plagiarism lawsuit. Keith Moon in a fireworks factory. Raj Cutler on a cider farm. Metallica suing for copyright. Keith Richards in a crematorium. Led Zeppelin at the Edgewater Inn. Excited as a kid at Christmas before disappearing to sort something or other out. We helped ourselves to the free organic ale and cider and went about unloading our gear. We walked back to the car, opened the boot, and about 40 packets of condoms fall out scattering everywhere. I turned to my bass player. What were you expecting to happen this weekend? He just laughed, shrugged his shoulders and started unpacking.
Our tents, not the condoms.
Maybe the information we had been given wasn't particularly accurate. It was a wonder we even made it to the gig. We were the second act on after an acoustic fellow, and he didn't get on stage until 9:30 at night. The whole affair was very relaxed. The bonfire was roaring, the hog roast was cooking, the organic beer was flowing. Tell you what, it was good beer, but to this day I couldn't explain why it was so good. Maybe it was something to do with it being free, but if I was pressured into doing a beer review, it tasted of compost. And somehow still tasted good. We went on stage at 10:30, 4.5 hours later than we expected we would. Our first song was the relatively new popular rock hit Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon. We played. We finished. No one applauded. Nobody seemed to even notice us. Unabashed, we cracked on. As time went by, people seemed to get more and more into our performance. We as the band had been drinking for free since we arrived, and the whole situation was so surreal. Next thing I know, we'd been playing for half an hour, and the crowd was going nuts, but it was at this point we discovered we didn't have enough material. My bass player was the front man, so we grabbed the mic and said,
Yeah, that's everything. We don't have any more songs. What do you want us to do?
top frontman skills there. Someone in the crowd yelled,
Play Sex on Fire!
We already played that, I tried to say, but people were cheering for it, so we played Sex on Fire again. The crowd loved it this time. Not sure why. We left the stage about 11:15. As I wandered into the crowd, this cute girl started talking to me. I stopped and tried to have a conversation with her, but the next band was diving headfirst into their song. Literally, as it turned out, but more on that in a second. Next thing I knew, this girl grabbed me by the hand and dragged me behind the portaloos and said,
I'm a nurse. I go to London Uni.
I'm a half-cut 17-year-old guy who's lead singer in a rock band, and I'd just been pulled away to a private area in a moonlit field in the middle of nowhere by a hot student nurse. Okay, so the back of the portaloos wasn't the most romantic of places, but nonetheless I was excited. My dreams were finally coming true. Finally, this was to be my coming-of-age story. This was my rock and roll moment. She leaned towards me, looked me dead in the eyes and said,
My boyfriend would really like you.
I didn't memorise the rest of the conversation, partly due to teenage angst, but mostly due to the near gallon of ale in my system. We enjoyed the award-winning Best Unsigned Band of the Year, who were some kind of indie rock, I think. I vividly remember the singer, who was about 5'1", leaping off the stage and Naruto running amongst the audience, heads down, arms thrown back behind him. At this point I black out. This gig was my first performance at a dedicated music festival, and it's such a shame that it never happened again, I think. It was an incredible experience. Even though I passed out, even though several of the details were hazy, and even though we can't find any physical evidence of it, I will remember it and call it my most memorable gig, as it's the first one I think of when anybody asks me about my favourite performance. But if you want to hear about my second most memorable gig, this one memorable for all the wrong reasons, then subscribe with that bell on to catch when I upload the video next week. I think the festival was called Willfields or something, but there is literally no record of it online. I would doubt my own memory if it wasn't for the single photograph that remains. It's of me, that night, after consuming probably my 12th organic beer. It shows my bass player and my drummer standing next to me with their thumbs up and smiles on their faces. I am passed out, led on a hay bale. I don't remember how I got there, or where it was.